David Baker, let's begin with San Onofre. 1968, that nuclear power plant came online. It was recently shut down. So tell us the story of San Onofre and why it was shut down.
San Onofre went through a process of replacing a lot of the key equipment to the plant so that they could keep it open another couple of decades. And what happened was in January of 2012, they had an incident where there was a small release of radioactive steam. And when they burrowed down trying to figure out exactly what had happened, they found out that some of this replacement equipment, which was extremely expensive, didn't operate the way that it was supposed to. There was basically a lot of premature wear on these tubes that are supposed to exchange heat within the reactor. And it's a key part of the plant. And it turned out that in order to keep that plant going, they were going to either have to come up with some kind of really extensive technological fix or maybe even replace the replacements, which would be extremely expensive. And the companies that operate it, primarily Southern California Edison, they took a look at the situation and knew that anything that they did was going to take a while to get federal approval for. And they threw in the towel. They basically said, no, this is not going to be worth it. It's not going to be effective for the ratepayers. Let's shut it down.
Lucas Davis, what was the carbon impact of that decision to shut down San Onofre?
It was enormous, Greg. San Onofre represented about 10% of California's electricity generation. So when it shut down, it was the equivalent of putting 2 million new cars and trucks on the road. It was valued at about $35 per ton. It was $300 million a year worth of carbon dioxide emissions, a huge increase in carbon dioxide.
So not a good deal for the climate. Jessica Lovering, Diablo Canyon is the one remaining nuclear power plant in the state, in California. There's a debate whether that should be shut down or extended. You think it should be kept going. Why?
I think, as Lucas said, San Onofre was a huge, 10% of California electricity. Diablo Canyon's a similar percentage. I think if California is trying to dramatically reduce carbon emissions, which we have a state mandate to do, we can't do it without Diablo Canyon continuing to operate. It would take a huge amount of renewables to replace it, sort of unprecedented. It's unsure if we can handle that. And in the meantime, if we're going to be building a lot of renewables, they should be replacing all the natural gas. California is still about 60-70% natural gas. So if we're trying to reduce carbon emissions, let's keep the nuclear power plant operating, make our challenge a little bit easier.
David Baker, what's PG&E going to do? Are they any indication? Are they going to keep it open, shut it down? Are they going to do something similar to San Onofre, or is Diablo Canyon different than San Onofre?
It's sort of hanging in limbo, which I'm quite surprised by. The PG&E, if you go back a few years before the Fukushima accident, back to 2009, PG&E announced with great fanfare that they wanted to keep Diablo open another couple of decades, and they were going to start the process of getting a new license extension for it. After Fukushima, that came to a screeching halt. They said, okay, we're going to stop. We're going to pause the relicensing project with the federal government. We'll do some more seismic tests, and then we'll see. They've done those seismic tests. They've finished them off, shipped them to the state government for review. And the federal government, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, has said, okay, we've waited long enough. We're going to go ahead and just start all the administrative work with relicensing anyway. But the company is still officially on the fence. If you talk to them about it, they say, well, we'll kind of keep things going as we need to, but we have not made a final decision that we want to go ahead and keep this plant open a couple of decades. And they've been in that kind of limbo state for a couple of years now, which surprises me.
And isn't it economic to keep that going because it's already paid for? Are they concerned about this new earthquake risk, these faults that are newly discovered that weren't quite known when the plant was built?
They say they're not concerned about the earthquake risks. In fact, they like to boast that the plant, as it stands right now, can survive the strongest quake that's likely to hit there in 10,000 years. At the same time, though, they do have a lot of issues going at the state level that could require them to pump a lot of money into the plant. In particular, there's a decision that's been pending for a couple of years at the State Water Resources Control Board, where the state government may force the company to put in a new kind of cooling system for the plant. And the estimates I've seen of the cost of that are everywhere from $1.4 billion all the way up to $14 billion. And so that's a big question mark.